want to say congrats on the way things are going in your career and jumping in. So you've done a lot of great music. If someone has never heard anything you've done, what is the first thing you'd like them listening to and why?
Wow, that's a great question. I don't think I've had that one before.
I'll take it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, what would that be? I think probably one of my records would be a good starting point. You know, I think probably Without Thinking would be my invitation to a starting point, I guess, because it was I think it was through working on these records that I did originally. Like Mount A was my first one, and Without Thinking the second one. It's I think that's kind of where you hear me finding my strongest point of musical resonance within myself. You know, it was a very when I started working on those records, I had been collaborating with people for ages and ages, and done various orchestra projects, string orchestra projects, band projects, which was, there was a lot of movement and a lot of touring and a lot of action. And it was kind of when I started working on this music that became these records that I really allowed myself the time and the space to just sit with myself and my own thoughts for a minute. And I think that's somehow where I just found like, I just got in tune with myself, if you will. So I think that's probably where I feel like I started to make sense.
You are the first person from Iceland to win an Oscar. And I'm just curious if you have paid for a drink in Iceland since.
That's a good question. Well, I stopped drinking, funnily enough, a couple of years before the Oscars. So I was like that sober during the Oscars, and have been ever since. So no, I have not paid for my own drink because I haven't been drinking.
Sure. You know what I mean, though.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure
absolutely. Yeah,
I'm sure it's a really big deal. Anyway, jumping.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful in Iceland because we're such a tiny culture. We're such a tiny population, and of course when someone has success like outside of Iceland, it's so beautiful. The whole country participates, and it's just like when, I don't know if you remember when it started to go really well for the Icelandic football team, and they became the heroes of the world, and we had this new thing, and in Iceland they were called Our Boys, and the whole country just flocked behind Our Boys, and we had this big parade when they came back from these tournaments, and that's a little bit how I felt like when around that time of the Oscars, I felt like I became Our Boys, the whole country was there with me. I became the child of the country. It was beautiful. It's a beautiful nation. A very strong solidarity.
I've actually been to Iceland. I found it was very beautiful, and I could keep going on that. But I would imagine over the last few years, as you've become more well-known and more successful, more people are talking to you about, hey, would you like to do the music for my project? So how do you decide what's something that I want to work on, say, when you're being offered a few different things?
Well, there are a few different things that are very important to me when when I start working on a project, or I decide to join a project, and that's probably first and foremost whether I like the people that are working on it or not. I think that's a very, very, very big factor for me, because you spend a lot of time working on these films, and if you don't like the people involved, it can get pretty difficult.
I've heard.
Yes, exactly. It can be complicated. But so that's probably the first factor. And then the second factor is of course whether I have the time or not, because I'm also someone who, I really like to take my time to work on a project, and I normally don't take anything on unless I know that I can really dive deep into it. And I'm not I don't have a team of people that I work with, and I really I don't have this factory setting. I have a couple of people that are very close to me, my husband and my best friend and my little brother, who sometimes help me, with conforms or mixing or production work. But the writing I really prefer just to do by myself in a room with no disturbance, and to really just like live inside the project that I'm working on. So the time factor is a very big one. And then of course it's a question of whether or not I feel like if I can bring anything of value or interest to the story or the project, because I need to feel that my contribution is bringing something interesting or elevating to the project, and that even if there are many projects that have come my way that would be great to do or exciting to do, if I feel like it's not within my range to do it, or if it's not within my scope of interest, or if I feel like it's going to be too narrow-minded for me, because I like to have a lot of, or certain amount of freedom and space to explore within the project, so all of these factors are come into play. So I end up not doing very many projects.
I understand. Talk a little bit about some of the unique challenges that you faced for Haunting in Venice. And if you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, I didn't really find it challenging at all. I found it mostly just really fun to work into, because I really grew up with Agatha Christie, and I grew up reading her books and Sherlock Holmes and Nancy Drew. Like I really was raised on detective novels. So I already had a very strong idea about what I feel like this genre should sound like. So it was just like a great place for me to explore whether these ideas that I had, like these tempos that I was feeling when I was reading these novels, like whether they were actually applicable to an actual project or not. So it was really fun for me to be able to work into this genre and with an Agatha Christie story, and that I guess came with that was kind of both the pro and the con, because I already set up very strong framework for me to work into. But the great thing was also that Ken had such a strong idea about what he wanted to do for the film and what he wanted it to sound like, and he wanted it to be very different from the other films, and he wanted it to be very dark and atonal and much more confined, like the sound world. He wanted like a chamber piece rather than an orchestral, like a sweeping orchestral score, So we had all these really great guidelines to work into, and he really stuck with them throughout the whole process of making the film. So I was able to write a lot of the music very early on in the process, just as they were finishing their shooting. I wrote a lot of the key pieces of music that they then implemented into the edit as they were starting to assemble the film together. So that's a beautiful way of working, I think, where the music and the film really grow together, like organically, and you can have an actual dialogue between the different art forms of the film, the editing and the acting and the music and the everything comes together.
It's so interesting because I've spoken to some composers who will write so much of the music before they've seen any footage, and then others who don't want to write anything until they've seen the visuals. And there's no right answer. It's just how people like to work.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's really just a personal preference, and I totally understand. I totally understand both ways, but I think for me, it is. I think, like, from when you read the script, you already have such a strong feeling of like how you experience the tempo and of the story, and I think the more the more of that or just like initial sense of the story that you feel, the more you can bring that into the fold early on, like the kind of the deeper dialogue you can have between the different elements of the film, I think, because then the edit starts to respond, or like the acting can, like in Joker, for example, the acting is really responding to the music. He's literally dancing to this. He's being led by the music and dances to the music. So in the same way within this film, like the edit is really following the pacing of the music. I think in that sense, you can kind of, all the elements can grow together very organically. I feel in my opinion, like in the way that I work.
Yeah, I'm curious, how long does it actually take you for something like Haunting in Venice? How long is your process? Are you on the film for 3 months? Are you on the film for 6 months? Is that the thing that you're solely working on? Like, how long does it typically take you to work on something?
Well, that really just depends on. It depends on when I come into the project, of course, to begin with. So that can vary. Like if I start before the shooting, or if I start like after. And normally I would start before the film is shot. So I will normally have music that they can listen to on set. And in this sense, I started working on the film as they were already shooting, so they were listening to my music, my records on the set. But it wasn't until they started editing that they actually had original music for the film. So this project was a little bit on the shorter side of what I normally would do. So I started working on this film in December, and we finished in August, really. So yeah, it's about 7 months, but it can be all up to 3 years sometimes that from start to finish, but I start really early. So it just depends on the project.
I completely get it. I have to wrap with you. I'm just going to say that I am obviously looking forward to your contributions to the Joker sequel.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
On that note, have a fantastic day.
Thank you. You too.